An NEMA 5.20R UON duplex receptacle outlet does not meet the requirements for damp or wet environments in commercial buildings. The National Electrical Code, specifically Article 406.9b in the 2023 edition, addresses this. NEMA 5.20R UON is a type of receptacle outlet commonly used in residential environments but is not rated for damp or wet locations. In commercial buildings, any receptacle outlet in a damp or wet location must be of the grounding type and have corrosion-resistant faceplates. Damp locations are defined as areas subject to moderate moisture levels, such as bathrooms and kitchens. Wet locations are areas subject to significant moisture exposure, such as laundry rooms or outdoor areas exposed to rain. Receptacle outlets designed for damp or wet locations will have markings indicating their suitability. They may also include weather-resistant covers or gaskets to prevent moisture ingress. The NEC defines damp location and wet location more precisely. Firstly, a damp location is a location protected from weather and not subject to saturation with water or other liquids, but subject to moderate degrees of moisture. Examples of damp locations include partially protected locations under canopies, marquees, roofed open porches, and like locations, and interior locations subject to moderate degrees of moisture, such as some basements, some barns, and cold storage warehouses. Secondly, a wet location is a location subject to saturation with water or other liquids. This includes unprotected locations exposed to weather. Examples include vehicle washing areas and similar locations. Installations underground or in concrete slabs or masonry in direct contact with the earth are also considered wet locations. The NEC provides specific requirements for wiring methods in both damp and wet locations. For example, wiring in wet locations generally needs to be suitable for direct burial and resistant to moisture. In damp locations, wiring needs to be protected from moisture and physical damage. Grounding is a critical safety feature, especially in damp and wet locations. The grounding system provides a low impedance path for fault current to flow back to the source, which helps to trip a circuit breaker or ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI, quickly. GFCI protection is often required in damp and wet locations to further reduce the risk of electric shock. A GFCI monitors the current flowing to and from a device. If there is a difference of 5 mA or more, the GFCI trips and cuts off the power. The corrosion-resistant faceplates are important because they prevent the receptacle from corroding due to moisture exposure. Corrosion can damage the receptacle and create a fire hazard. There are several types of receptacles that are specifically designed for damp and wet locations. These receptacles typically have features such as weather-resistant covers, gaskets, and corrosion-resistant materials. The NEC also requires that all receptacles installed in damp and wet locations be listed. This means that the receptacle has been tested and certified by a third-party testing laboratory to meet certain safety standards. When selecting a receptacle for a damp or wet location, it is important to consider the specific environmental conditions. For example, if the receptacle is located in an area that is subject to frequent washing, it is important to select a receptacle that is specifically designed for that type of application. It's crucial to understand the implications of using incorrect receptacles in damp or wet locations. The most obvious risk is electric shock. Water is a conductor of electricity, so if a non-weather-resistant receptacle gets wet, it can create a path for electricity to flow to a person who touches it. This can cause serious injury or even death. In addition to electric shock, using the wrong type of receptacle can also create a fire hazard. If water gets into the receptacle, it can cause the electrical components to corrode and short circuit. This can generate heat and start a fire. Furthermore, using a non-compliant receptacle can result in code violations and potential fines. Electrical inspectors will check for proper receptacle types during inspections, especially in commercial settings where adherence to the NEC is strictly enforced. Therefore, it is always recommended to use receptacles specifically designed and listed for damp or wet locations in such environment. There are specific requirements outlined in the NEC for the installation of receptacles in these areas, so consulting with a qualified electrician is always advisable. Firstly, consider the location. Determine if the location is classified as damp or wet according to the NEC definitions. Secondly, select a receptacle. Choose a receptacle that is specifically listed for use in damp or wet locations. Thirdly, ensure proper grounding. Connect the receptacle to a properly grounded circuit. Fourthly, use corrosion-resistant materials. Ensure that the faceplate and other exposed parts of the receptacle are made of corrosion-resistant materials. Fifthly, install weather-resistant covers. Use weather-resistant covers to protect the receptacle from moisture. Sixthly, consult a qualified electrician. If you are not comfortable with electrical work, consult a qualified electrician. They can ensure that the receptacle is installed properly and safely. The NEC is a comprehensive set of standards that covers all aspects of electrical installations. It is important to be familiar with the NEC requirements for receptacles in damp and wet locations to ensure that electrical systems are safe and compliant. Staying informed about changes in the NEC is also crucial, as the code is updated every 3 years. These updates may include new requirements or clarifications related to receptacle installations in damp and wet locations. Remember that the goal of these regulations is to protect people and property from electrical hazards.